Good morning, everyone. We'll give folks a minute to join. This is the 9:30 call. I am not Amy O'Leary. I am Titus Dasformedius, our deputy director, and Amy is off today, so I'm guest hosting. Happy to do it. Great to see you all. Neri is co-hosting with me and recording. And we hope you all had a nice weekend. So our special guest today is Michelle from the Little Amigos Early Learning Center. And Michelle McDougall, happy to see you this morning. Great to meet you as well. And I know you have a very inspiring story about collaboration, teamwork, and community. So I'm going to pass it over to you to get us started today. Our first question is always tell us about you and how you came to your current role. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Titus. So most of how I came into this current role will be the entire presentation of how this whole thing started. And so today I'm lucky to have some of our founding board members with it too. I have Soumya, who is due to have a baby, I don't know, in the next 5 to 10 minutes. Meredith and Catherine all are part of our team, and Olivia might jump on in a little bit. She had an appointment this morning. But a little bit more where I came from. So I grew up in the Allentown, Reading area of Pennsylvania. And by the time I was done with finishing high school, I was in charge of the preschool programming at a local karate studio. Little did I know at 17 that would be 20 something years later, kind of foreshadowing it. But I came to the Boston area to go to Stonehill College, where I got my bachelor's in mathematics and a minor in psychology. I worked within residence life for most of my college career and realized, oh, I could do this as a job. Cool. I'll work at a college managing those types of items. And so I went to Northeastern for my master's for applied educational psychology and started working at Bay State College in Boston, where I worked my way up to the director of residence life, where I was managing staff development, managing facilities and facilities requests and maintenance and all of the logistics and paperwork about moving in, about housing assignments, all of these things to which I did not know foreshadow into my current position. And then after some time doing that, working my way up, I decided I wanted to be back in the classroom. So I finished up my DESE licensure for 5 through 12 mathematics instruction. But at that point in time, there wasn't really a teacher shortage. And so I couldn't find a job because I was licensed without classroom experience. So I ended up picking up a paraprofessional job at the therapeutic day school at Boston Public Schools and worked my way up through there as an instructional coach. Um, but then I had 2 kids, right? They're currently 7 and 4, almost 4. And so then kind of where it picks up is where this story picks up and kind of how the 5 of us came together and kind of did that. So yeah. What do you think, Titus? You ready for the slides?
I think that's wonderful.
Okay.
Yes, let's get
Let
into the slides.
let's see. And any questions that you guys have, throw them in the chat. Meredith, Soumya, and Catherine. If it's something easy, answer it right there. They're no strangers to interrupting me when I'm going through it. So if it's a question that's like, oh, wait, Michelle, stop and talk about this, you guys know the drill. All right, so here we go. As they always say, the hardest part is this. All right. Can everybody see that? Is it the
Yep,
slideshow? Cool. All
looks
right.
great.
Awesome. So here we are, Little Amigos Early Learning Center. And so one of the big things that actually struck me when I started attending the 9:30 call was about this idea of community and what community means and how community can work together with everything with all of that. And so this really is a story about how our community was starting to collapse. We did not want it to collapse. And so therefore we kept it moving and figured that out. And so really it kind of speaks to bringing people together with people and people together with policy to figure out where we're going. And we are located in West Roxbury, Massachusetts, and we opened in January of 2023. So, uh-oh, wrong button. Here we go. So the bigger part here is that the previous childcare program announced its closing, and then we had to figure out what to do. But how did we get there in the first place? So at various points throughout 2019 and 2022, each of the founding members started our children at Little Blessings Daycare and Preschool located inside the Trinity Lutheran Church in West Roxbury. Olivia and I had been friends prior to that from work and other items. And it was one of those things where we also had a strong internet community. I live in Jamaica Plain. And if you've read the Boston Globe a little bit, they always tend to highlight the Jamaica Plain Moms Facebook group and the connectivity of it and how that all works. And so all of us, with the exception of Meredith, were part of this Facebook group. We weren't friends before our kids went to daycare together. We ended up on a group chat because we were like, this is a little bit like Vegas. We don't really know what's going on. This kiddo came home and said it was this person's birthday. It's not that person's birthday. Cool. And so that's how we all became friends and connected. And really, it was through our Facebook parent community that worked. And then these next three blocks actually all happened within 10 days of each other. So the first thing that happened, one, the first week of November 2022, the owner and director of Little Blessings held a meeting and announced we all needed to find new childcare within 6 weeks because she was closing the doors of the Christmas holiday. This was quite a bit of a blindside. Things had seemed a little bit rocky at some points, but we were like, oh, it's growing pains, whatever. But no, she was like, we're over, we're done. So then we all thought about different things. We visited other centers. We visited family childcare. We thought about nannies. Really, everything and anything was on the table. We had 6 weeks to figure it out. But we all really loved our community and loved our space. And so we didn't really know. We started asking these kinds of questions. What if we don't want to close? What if we want to ask more questions? What if this is the best community for our children? And what if we just don't like the other options? What are we doing? Now, at this point, on part three here, Olivia and Soumya pretty much were like, we need to figure out how to save this place. We need to do this. They look at me and I say, no way. I'm not doing this. I'm all done. There's a center that'll take my kid. I'll go ahead and do it. And they're like, come on, Michelle, let's just explore it. And I'm always up for an adventure. So I was like, yeah, sure, fine. We'll go ahead and do that. So then part of the next 10 days was really thinking about who are these kids that we're thinking about? These are the kiddos right here. So these four young gentlemen and this little lady in the wagon there, they were all the people who were the last graduating class of the Little Blessings preschool. And so this was the community we wanted to save. And then we thought about the little ones that were going to be the future. Like, where are they going to go? Who's going to take care of them? The teachers are wonderful. The space is ridiculous. Like, what are we going to do? So we started it with the Trinity Lutheran Church. And we went to the church leadership and we said, what's the problem here? Why is she closing? And he came back and said, really, she's been trying to retire for 2 years at this point, and she just can't get the succession planning going. Whether it was emotional or logistics wise, she's just overdone. She's closing the doors. But we have nobody else coming in, and she's not taking the stuff. So why don't we, if you guys can figure it out, go ahead. Because really, they just wanted the space to be used for community service when they're not occupying the building. It's here. It's fit for it. Why not use it? So then we got to talking to the staff. And, we got in touch with the staff who had all left recently because there were some people who had left as recent as October. There were some people that were going new places after she was closing. And we really wanted to know what wasn't working, what happened. And I'm kind of here to tell you, parents have no clue about what goes on in their childcare center inside. They have no clue how little the compensation is. They have no clue how little the respect can be from either other families or administration or things like that. These were things that we had just assumed were wonderful. We pay all this money for this childcare. We had made the assumption that it was going towards the educators, and it wasn't. And once we really figured out kind of what opportunities there were for them for career advancement, what opportunities were them for compensation and benefits, we were like, we can't look back now. Like we know what this is. We have to now try and make a little bit of a difference. And then we also spoke to the current teachers who really weren't sure what they were going to do next and ask them to join us. And that's where we found our director one person. Because as I'll go through on the next slide, we are all early education outsiders. The five of us had no clue about anything about the early ed world. Two of us were educators in K through 12, but it's very, very different. So then after that, we were like, okay, we need some people who know what they're doing. So we first talked to Kristen Clark at Willow Path Childcare. She legit is right around the corner. And it turns out Kristen actually started her journey into early ed in the same exact space in the Trinity Lutheran Church. Her kids were at the Bright Horizons in the Faulkner, and they closed suddenly as well. And so she was like, what if I find a church who has space and can do that? And so she ended up doing that in the early 2000s. And part of the reason we decided we could do it was, well, if Kristen could do this in the early 2000s without knowing very much and not having the internet, we at least have the internet. So we can at least Google things and look things up and try and figure that out. And then, Olivia's mom, Margie, she was retiring as an executive director in the Pittsburgh Public Library System. And when Olivia was younger, she ran a childcare center herself. So we're like, wait, you know how to run a nonprofit and a childcare center, even though it was a really long time ago, you're going to be an asset to us. And she still consults with us to this day. And we have many more advisors that we'll go through as I continue the presentation. But really, it's one of those things that we were like, wow, like we need to make an impact for these staff because they take care of our most important things. And this is how they're being compensated. That's not cool. And so this is when we ask the question that I will never recommend anyone ask ever again. How hard can it be? Very hard. But we really needed to know, what are the rules we need to follow? Who do we need to contact and work with? And who do we know? What skills can we find? How do we coordinate it all and get this done in 6 weeks? And so really, it again was leaning into our community, leaning into our greater parent community, leaning into our personal communities, like who can help us. And so the way it got done is that the five of us were quite persistent. And so we sat back and everyone pitched in with all the tasks, but there was people that were in charge of making sure that it was going together. And so, the key tasks that everyone helped with were the staff interviews. We figured out how to post on Indeed. We were doing interviews on Zoom, posting to social media to try and figure out everyone and anyone that may be looking for work. And then we tackled the licensing to-do list, and it's a whole slide about licensing. And we had all of the support of our partners. One of our partners did a lot of the accounting. One did the website. One helped with the facilities. Two were just emotional support, making us do it and really just being like, hey, can you go to Home Depot and pick this up for us? Hey, can you run around and do this? And so it was really an all hands on deck situation. But one of the things that we did, which was the most, didn't seem like a big thing at the time, but it was, is we set up a Gmail that was just director@littleamigos.org or director@little.littleamigos@gmail. And we all had access to it. So we could see everything coming in and everything going out and how we could work together. But Olivia was with us, and she was our founding president. She was a BPS educator, special education, kind of a jack of all trades at the school. Her tasks were keeping the community informed because we had all the emails of the current people who were attending, because at some point in time, they sent an email and forgot to blind CC all the parents and just regularly CC'd the parents. So we were able to kind of rip all the emails off that and say, hey, we're thinking about doing this. Who's in? She did all of the enrollment work, the family engagement, and worked through the budget. And then we had Catherine. And so Catherine took on the insurance, the payroll, the budget, and then we'll get to the Boston Public Schools Universal Pre-K application. But she was the treasurer, her husband was the accountant. So it just made the most sense, right? Olivia's child was the oldest. She got to be the president. I was doing a lot of the paperwork, so I got to be the clerk. And so really that's how it all fell into place for us. So I was keeping track of staffing and what we were doing, the facilities, the one working back and forth with our licensor, and then doing the nonprofit paperwork. Soumya, now poor Soumya, she was also going on a trip to India. So she was leaving like the first week in December and was like, am I going to have childcare when I return? Unclear. But we promised her we would finish it all up. And so she helped us out with a lot of the website, the tech, the getting all of those things together, attending all of the meetings with us, and thinking about the board development piece when she returned. Um, and then, Meredith is so the four of us, me, Olivia, Catherine, and Soumya, we were connected through the parent Facebook group. Meredith was a parent at Little Blessings. And her son and my son are about the same age. And so we actually toured other places together. But then she started asking me questions and she was like, well, have you guys thought about this? Well, have you thought about that? Well, what are you about? And I said, well, it looks like you're about to join the group chat. So are you in or are you out? And then she was thankfully in. And so she was helping us with our staffing strategy, connecting us with organizations like JVS, like Mass Hire. She took meetings with Urban College and with the mayor's office and really trying to figure that out so that we could work through policy development. And so now we're at the point where we have to formally organize. Like, okay, we're here. This is what we're doing. This is how it's going. And so, we decided to open because remember, all of this is happening within 10 days. And we all worked regular full-time jobs, 9 to 5, sometimes a little bit more, depending upon what we were doing. So we decided to open as a nonprofit for a couple of reasons. One is it really aligned with our mission and values of taking care of our staff, of taking care of our community. And really, none of us were looking to profit from this at all. Honestly, it wasn't until the end of the first year that we even realized how much money is involved in a childcare center. And so you can also open a nonprofit in 1 to 2 business days and for $35 in the state of Massachusetts. So it hit our price point and hit our timeline. So that was another reason why we did that. And so on November 14th, we filed all that paperwork. And thank goodness we had Margie along for the ride. So she knew about the inner workings of a nonprofit, what we needed to do, how things needed to be worded, what needed to be said. Because we had to write the bylaws. In the beginning, we were like, what do we need these things for? Why do we need these bylaws? We just need to have this childcare center. That's what we're going to do. But it is, as we've learned, it is really important to have this structure and strategy put in place. And so from there, we read a lot. We did all of those things. Same thing with setting up board of directors, delineating roles, having all of that go together. Those were all things that we had to do within like a 2-week time span. The 501c3 process, this took a little bit longer, but thankfully they retroactive put your status in. So anything we did prior to that would have been fine. And then the budget, the accounting, the insurance, the payroll, and then. Once we check something off, we would be proud of ourselves and be like, oh no, here we go. Oh no, here we go. And it was really all of us sticking together and going through it and pulling through our greater community to figure out how we're doing that. And then the licensing process. Always remember, you don't know what you don't know. In the beginning of this process, our licensor and us, I think it was a little rocky. Because really what we did is we sat back and said, listen, this place was licensed before, just license us. Like, what are you doing? We're not building, we're not moving anything. We have the same chairs, like license us, come on. And, it was back and forth. And finally, she was like, I don't know who you people are. My job is to make sure the community is safe for children. How do I know that you are going to do the right thing? And I basically was like, well, because I'm telling you I'm going to do the right thing. And she's like, right, but I can't do that for everyone. So for you, I have to you need to have all of these things in place. And one of the biggest questions we get is, why didn't the other business just sign over the business and sign over the license to you guys? We don't really know, but I think the answer is she just didn't want to. And it's her prerogative to do it. And so that's how we ended up starting from the beginning. So with the licensing, right, the 2 big pieces that were hard, well, all of it was hard. Don't get me wrong, all of it was hard, but we needed to have the staff in place to open. You can't open without staff. But I'm like, but how do I pay staff without being open? So we had a lot of conversation about that. And you also need to have 3 months of operating expenses in a bank account and proof of it. And so, like, when people are trying to open a childcare center, you have to have a lot of means to be able to do it. It's not the easiest thing. You, there's lots of barriers in the way for people that would like to open a center. And I think EEC is trying to think about how that all works and goes together. We need to have all the building inspections, all of those things done. I knew that from my director of residence life job, so I was able to go down to inspectional services and deal with that. But then we had to write and rework all of the policies and do all of those things together. And so, I'm on the phone Christmas break. My licensor, and she was a baller. She during that entire break would read all of our documents, send it back for edits, go back and forth. We tried to get things from all the people we knew. Hey, your kid goes here. Can you send us your parent handbook? All of those types of things. And so we went through and did that. And then we had to prepare for opening day. This quote here is my favorite from a staff interview in December. You know, so you don't have your license yet. I'm like, oh no, I'm working on it. And so, these were how we were having interviews. And that week after Christmas, facility challenges. I showed up and they gave me just a pile of keys in my hands. I'm like, well, what are these keys for? I don't know. Okay, great. The floor in one of the classrooms had just been retiled, but the person never cleaned the glue. So the floor was covered in glue. When I asked the woman, I'm like, who did you use for this before? And she's like, he died. I was like, what? So now I'm Googling, how do you strip floors, right? Because these are all things that need to be done. We have 5 days to open. What are we doing? Where does it all go? How do we make it work? Staffing. We have all this paperwork to do. BRC. Do we have enough staff to open? Continuing the search. Oh, by the way, our director's out on leave because her daughter was having a baby. So the director got us all set up and told us what we need to do, but then she was MIA for a while. And so we had to run a staff orientation on January 2nd. And also our entire staff is bilingual. So we had to run it in Spanish. So we needed to hire interpreters. And so it's thinking about all of those things. The child enrollment, we don't even know what we're licensed for yet. Which families are staying? How are we getting new families? What is everything going? How is this looking? What is the difference between a letter that says my kid has a physical and a school camp form? All of these things we didn't know we wanted to know. And the day to day, what are the teachers going to do with these kids? All of those types of things.
So Michelle, you have 5 minutes left. So
I
I
know.
just wanted to give you the
I'm
time
going.
check. This story is
Okay.
amazing. And
Yes.
you have lots of praise in the chat and one question. So just keep going and I'll if there are other questions that come through, I'll
Yeah.
ask them as we get closer to 10.
Oh yeah. We are on our way. So now we're trying to figure this out. We're figuring out all of these things as we go. To our January 3rd life opening day, we opened. We had our final licensing visit. We learned about technical assistance. What is that? We didn't even know. Why didn't anyone tell us? But for licensing, we found the observational record checklist, and that's what we use to kind of prepare and to figure it out. We licensed for 20 kiddos across 3 classrooms. Our total enrollment on opening day was 18. In 2024, in January, it was 36. In 2025, in January, it was 42. We started with 7 staff. We now have 17. And out of those 7 staff, 3 are still with us. And we're starting to learn everything that we needed to know. And so what remains the same? These 3 things are still the same. It's a warm, loving environment for kids. It's a strong parent community. We had a family event last week that had 83% of the kids that were scheduled to attend that day attended the event. And really, number 3 is where I see my most work coming in, is this work environment where the staff are seen and heard and compensated for. And so, what's the same? Our licensor is still the same. She was just here on Monday, and I was like, I don't know if I could have gotten through 2.5 years without you. We're still in the Trinity Lutheran Church. We're still a nonprofit with a board of directors, bilingual English and Spanish. We accept vouchers, but that's a tricky situation and a story for a different day, how we navigate that and where all of that goes. And then we're open from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. It's a long day, but that's what works best for our community. And so what's changed? What did we learn? We've increased licensure from 40 to 43 and then 45 children again in January. We have our universal pre-K partnership with Boston Public Schools. This was the biggest fight because the other four board members wanted to do it. And I said, absolutely not. We don't have the capacity. We can't do this. And so it's one of those things that we pushed through and we did the application. And actually that was the best choice that we've ever made. The support we get from BPS and from the city of Boston in regards to having a community and doing that. I think that was a good move, even though I did not originally think so. We changed our organizational structure. I quit my full-time job at Boston Public Schools, and now I work here. We get coaching through Region 6 through Metro Boston, which I did not know existed. We build systems and tweak them all the time. And then our changing in staffing strategy and supervision and increasing how we're having a supportive work environment through our partnership with Kale and the Good Job Challenge. We're partnering with neighborhood villages. We have we have an in-house food program now. What used to be in-house, and now we've gone through 2 iterations of who we're using for vendors. All of that. Evolving our family programming, and we've built a new outdoor playground. So what's next for us? I don't know. We are really thinking about the future and where does that go? Maximizing our nonprofit status and our fundraising and grant writing. We did have an end of year campaign last year. That brought us in a good chunk of change and thinking about how do we change that. Some of the family engagement that we're doing, take it from more social programming to what kind of services we can offer. In September, we are going to start our strategic planning process. I've been kind of dragging my feet and go through the NACI accreditation and really continue to trust the staff and follow their lead on what we do here and how can we make it better and what we can do to make it the best space for them to work. But it's definitely been, I'll stop to share, but it's definitely been a really interesting adventure and an interesting trip. And people who are here, that are old friends of us, thanks for coming, and people here that are new friends, reach out at any time. If you guys have any questions or want to hear some of the antics that we all went through, the picture of the 2 little boys at the table was my son and Meredith's son. And I think it was a day where we were out of ratio and we had too many kids and not enough staff. And I convinced her husband to take my kid too, so I could go to work. And so, there was a lot of that kind of stuff happen, but it really is about the staff, about making them lunch once a month, about all of those things and how do we support them through this.
Yes.
And how all that works. So
Amazing. Well, I see Soumya and I saw Meredith in the chat. I wonder if whoever's on your team who's here could just say hello and their name and role
yeah.
if they feel comfortable, because I would just love them to get a spotlight real quick before we close.
Yeah.
Soumya, would you like to start?
Sure. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Soumya. I was on the founding board. I've had 2 children go through Little Blessings, now Little Amigos, and I have a third on the way. Once again, really appreciate you having us here.
Thank you, Soumya. And Meredith.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for listening to our story. I'm Meredith Crouse. I was founding board member. I just finished my term, kind of bittersweet because I love being involved and really like to stay in touch with the group and hear how things are continuing to grow and get better.
Thank you. Are there others?
This is Correia. I just climbed out of a lake, so I'm not going to put the camera on. I'm on vacation this week.
Wonderful.
But I am also a founding board member, started as treasurer and now am president of the board, and really happy to share a story here. Thanks.
But I think it just kind of highlights what the 930 call is all about, right? Is that we needed people to tell us what to do. And along the way, we're now picking up other advisors that are telling us about things like the 930 call, about neighborhood villages, about Boston Pre-K, about all of these things. And then now it's about us really reading into it and digging into it and figuring out where can we go, what connections can we make, who can we talk to. So I'm very appreciative for this community and everyone that's here every day, because I've learned so much and have made so many connections here, that I look forward to my continued learning, at the hands of you guys. So great.
Amazing. Thank you, Michelle. 9:30 callers, please join me in thanking Michelle and the Little Amigos team. This was an amazing, inspiring summer story for a Monday in July. So thank you for sharing it, but thank you for thank you for doing it. The fact that there was no gap in coverage for those families is amazing with such little lead time to prepare and pull it all off. So wonderful stuff. And this recording will be on our YouTube channel. We'll share that later, and the slides will go on our 9:30 call archive. Amy will be back tomorrow to host the 9:30 call. So I will say goodbye and close the call. And thank you to everyone. Have a great morning.